Alright everyone, welcome back. So we continue on our 2024 reviews today with the Columbus Blue Jackets. So this is another disappointing year. Again, another really disappointing season from the Blue Jackets. It's a little bit better from what happened last year, but still, overall it's very disappointing considering the facts. So Columbus, we're just going to start off right away. They went 27, 43, and 12 for 66 points. They finished 29th in the NHL this year. Now, it's a little bit better than last year, but not by much. I think they actually finished in the same spot they did last year. If I'm correct, I believe they were the third worst team in the NHL. Now they're the fourth worst. I think they were the fourth worst team in the NHL. But regardless, I still think they're a few years off. I thought they were going to get better, like way better this year. And the pieces are there, but overall, just injuries and bad defense and the goaltending not being great either has really kind of put this team a couple of years behind. They have a .402 points percentage, which is ranked 29th. They have scored 237 goals, have let in 300 for a minus 63 difference overall. So, honestly, I think that the goaltending has been the biggest issue with that. We'll get into that a little bit here. They were 17, 19, and 5 at home, and they're 10, 24, and 7 on the road. I'm going to give credit to Columbus Blue Jackets fans here real quick. A lot of the games that I see, they sell out. That is a hockey city. That is a non-traditional market that has become a hockey city. People won't like that, but they genuinely are. If the team was good, that city would be electric. I remember 2019, I remember 2018 when they were solid. They weren't like a great team, but they were solid. And I remember that sweep against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was unbelievable. That team was unbelievable. Then they lost all their players, and everything has just kind of been downhill from there. They have really kind of struggled to attract that big market name player, unless if their name is Gaudreau, obviously. So, their other stats here, you got a 2.85 goals for per game, which is 25th. They had a 3.63 goals against per game, which is second to last. So, I thought overall, the offense got better. The offense got a lot better this year. I think there were a lot of guys that scored at a pretty solid rate, scored a lot. And I think a lot of that, too, is that this team got a lot healthier from last season. Last year, they were injury prone. This year, they were, too. But this year, I felt like they got a lot more healthy than they were last year. So that was definitely a benefit and help with the offense. They have a 15.1 power play percentage, which is ranked 31st. And they have a 76.3 penalty kill percentage, which is ranked 26th. So there's still a few ways away there from being that team special team-wise. I think you add more offense to this overall core, I think the team gets a lot better. There is talk to them going and getting a defenseman. There's talk to them getting even a forward at this year's draft. But honestly, they need kind of a little bit of everything right now. So I really don't know what to expect when I'm looking at the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're heading into this draft. TikTok average, they have a 7.51 when I do my TikTok power rankings, which is 30th overall. So they're third last in that ranking. They stayed eighth. They stayed eighth in the division for pretty much the entire season when it came to my power rankings. So and the NHL overall. So, yeah, above all, a rough season there for Columbus, but there were some positive when you look at the individual numbers. Johnny Gaudreau was probably not one of them. 81 games played, 12 goals, 48 assists for 60 points. Yeah, he had a rough year scoring. He had a really bad year when it came to scoring. Even last year, he got like 75 points. This year was a step down from that. I think a lot of it, too, was that the offense from him really dried up. The offense wasn't great. You just look at the overall number, like 12 goals from a guy like him who was signed to that huge contract when he came in. That's not great. Not great overall. Zach Werenski, second in scoring. 70 games played, 11 goals, 46 assists for 57 points. Last year, he was injured for a lot of the season, so it's good to see Werenski getting some ice time there this year for the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Werenski, probably that best defenseman there for this team. I think he's definitely warranted himself at that position. And yeah, this team has, above all, a really rough defensive core when you look at it. Kirill Marchenko, 78 games played, 23 goals, 19 assists for 42 points. I think if I'm looking at it correctly, he led the team in goals this year. So, impressive stat line there for a guy like Marchenko, who, I don't know if he came out of nowhere, but definitely has become a kind of a steal here for Columbus. You see that sometimes when you look at really bad teams. You'll get a player here and there that suddenly pops up out of nowhere, like Marty Pospisil for the Calgary Flames. Like, that was a guy that kind of popped up out of nowhere when you look at the overall depth chart. So that's what happens when you have kind of teams in the NHL. You see some guys that you really wouldn't expect come up and make a name for themselves, and that was what Marchenko was last season, and he's made a bigger name for himself this season. So I'm a big fan of Marchenko, if you couldn't tell. Boone Jenner, 4th in scoring, 58 games played, 22 goals, 13 assists, 35 points. I thought Boone Jenner had a great regular season. There were rumors that he was going to get traded, but Jenner loves it here. He loves being a Columbus Blue Jacket, so I got nothing but respect for him. This team, he's been around for a very long time. He was one of the players. There's not a lot of them left, but he's one of the players who was on this team when they swept Tampa in 2019. There's not a lot of players left from that team 5 years ago, so that is something that I give him a lot of credit for. 5th in scoring, Dmitry Voronkov. Voronkov made a big name for himself this year. 75 games played, 18 goals, 16 assists, 34 points. He's another one of those names where you look at him and he's had himself a really impressive season, above all. Was a guy that wasn't expected to be this big name player, but he's been really impressive this year and kind of made himself an argument for the Calder Trophy at points there as a rookie. Was never a finalist, but definitely was a top 10 in voting for sure. Excuse me, I still have that cold that I was dealing with. Cole Sillinger, 77 games played, 13 goals, 19 assists for 32 points. Again, I thought Cole Sillinger had himself a solid season there too, but there's a lot of guys in this team, a lot of young players who really just weren't all that great. Like Kent Johnson is not even on this board. He had a pretty rough season. Patrick Laine too. I realize Fantilli's not on this board. I think he's had more than 28 points. So I might need to go check that, but I apologize. I kind of forgot Fantilli, but I will give him a shout out here in a second. But yeah, Sillinger had himself a really rough season. I think he still played well, but not the guy we expected him to be. Ivan Provorov, his first season with the Blue Jackets, he had 82 games played, 5 goals, 27 assists for 32 points. I thought Provorov had a good season too. I think that overall, like, I said it when he came to Columbus. I said he wasn't that awesome of a defensive defender, which I thought they didn't really need one of those guys. But I guess they're looking for veterans on the blue line, so I guess it made a little bit of sense. But I don't know. I was never really a huge fan of Provorov when he was with my Philadelphia Flyers. Alex Texier, 78 games played, 12 goals, 18 assists, 30 points. Texier, in his return from France, I thought he had a really good season. When you're looking at the expectations, he comes back after missing a year in the NHL. I thought he had himself a pretty solid season. I saw him play live, actually, and I think he did score. So, yeah, I've seen Columbus play live. It was back in November when they played the Devils, and they won 2-1. I thought that was a very impressive game that they played. So, above all, I've seen them play a couple of times in the last couple of years. Yegor Chenikov, 9th in scoring, 53 games played, 16 goals, 13 assists, 29 points. Chenikov, I remember when he came in a couple of years ago, and I think it was the year in 2021 when it was a weird bubble year. He came in, kind of impressed us a little bit. They missed the playoffs, but he still played well. But I think he's kind of fallen to where we realistically see him being at, although he did miss 30 games, so you got to keep that in mind there too. And then finally, Damon Severson, 10th in scoring, 67 games played, 9 goals, 19 assists for 28 points. Severson was a player they brought in, signed him to an 8-year extension. I didn't really make sense to me, but I guess it is what it is. He's there for a while now, and that's the other thing too. You look at Columbus's blue line; they have a lot of money on that blue line. Like, they're a team that's rebuilding, but they don't have a lot of cap space. So that's the biggest problem. I think Jarmo Kekalainen kind of screwed them over here a little bit when you're looking at that. And right now they don't even have a general manager. Kekalainen was fired. Davidson's the interim, but I don't know if you want Davidson to be the permanent guy. So I would imagine they're going to hire a GM here very soon, maybe even this week, because you want to get one before the draft. That's the biggest thing you want to get. I don't know if they run with Davidson. I highly doubt it, but I've seen crazier things happen. Notice there's no Kent Johnson. There's no Patrick Laine on that top 10 in scoring. Johnson had himself a really rough year. I think he missed some time with injury, but still had a rough season. Patrick Laine was in the player assistance program. It was, again, another really struggling year there for Patrick Laine, and my best wishes go out to him because, honestly, I really do hope he gets better. I was looking at the 2015 draft today, doing some redrafts, and yeah, it's just not looking too great for the Columbus forward now. In terms of goaltending, you got Elvis Merzlikins. Merzlikins a 13, 17, and 8 record, a 3.45 and a .897. There were talks a lot this season about moving Merzlikins. I think that talks will resume again in the offseason. I think Tarasov and Jet Greaves, I'm not going to get into Greaves, but I will get into Tarasov. I thought they both played pretty solid. I think they're going to try and move Merzlikins this offseason. I don't know where exactly you send them off to, but I think they're going to try and move him. I think you have to. His contract isn't great. He hasn't put up great numbers the last couple of years, and he said himself that he doesn't want to play here. So I think you got to try and move him this offseason. But the thing is, though, is that when the trade deadline, when they try and move them then, there was no interest there. So that's the biggest problem. There was no interest when they tried moving him at first. Then he got Tarasov. Tarasov 8-11-3, a 3.18 and a .908. I think the potential is there in Tarasov. I thought in the games he played pretty decent. Having a .908 is pretty good for a team that was not that great defensively. So I would say they probably run Tarasov and Greaves if they move Merzlikins this offseason. I think there's a legitimate chance that does happen, but I've been wrong before, so we'll see. So yeah, that's your stats overall for the players and goalies. In terms of guys who were in and guys that were out during the regular season, this is the thing that I do in replacing trades. I don't want to just go through every single trade because we'll be here for like 20 minutes. So let's look at ins and outs of the team. The guys who came in, Alex Robinson, Alex Nylander, Malcolm Subban, Jacob Zaboral, a third, a fourth, a sixth, and then a seventh. And the outs were Jack Roslovic, Andrew Peak, Emil Bemstrom, and Robinson. So Robinson literally just left right afterwards anyways. So it's one of those things. It's just like Beauvillier. But regardless, those were the guys who came in and out. I think, honestly, they don't have a whole lot of assets to move. That's why the trade deadline was a little bit dry from Columbus. We did see, though, they were going to try and move some big pieces, but I guess there was no interest out there. They were going to try and move Merzlikins, but there was obviously nothing out there for them to really make an argument for that. But, they moved Roslovic and Peak. They really did what they could do, but honestly, it is what it is. That's everything with the 23-24 season. Let's move into the offseason now and talk about what exactly the future's looking like. Sorry if my voice sounded really hoarse. I'm still dealing with this cold. But draft capital overall. They have the 4th overall pick in the first round. That's their only first-round pick. They have no second. They have 2/3, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and they have no 7th overall pick. So the draft capital is very scarce. There's not a whole lot there besides the 4th overall pick. I don't know what they go with, though, in this 4th round. I don't know. You could go with a defenseman. You could go with a forward. I really have no idea. I think they go with a defenseman, though, because this team needs defense desperately. My only problem is that there are so many players that are on this that are in this that are like on this team that play defense, like Werenski, Provorov, Severson. Just there's so many guys, and there's not a whole lot of room for young players to come in. Like even Juracek didn't play a lot this season. He was bouncing between there and Cleveland, so that's a problem that I think could be really affected. That could be a relationship that gets ruined. But honestly, I don't know. I'm really kind of surprised they kept Pascal Vincent as the head coach. I was calling for his head earlier in the season, but it is what it is. I guess they want to keep him. UFAs and RFAs is the final thing we'll look at here today. UFAs is not that bad. You got Meyer and Gauntz. Not huge name players. It wouldn't be a big deal if they let him go. And then RFAs: Texier, Marchenko, Sillinger, Chinnikov, Nylander, Jake Bean, and Ken Johnson. So there's a lot of young guys in there, like Texier, Marchenko, Sillinger, Chinnikov, and Johnson. Those are a lot of young players there. So I could see them dealing out. It's not going to be huge deals. They could deal out some bridge contracts, but above all, they don't have a whole lot of money. That's the other issue. They don't have a whole lot of cap space to really make a move here, if I'm thinking correctly. So that's the problem. I don't think any of these guys are going to be like really expensive. I don't think any more than $3 million, but still, these guys are going to want at least a little bit of money to keep them here. So I think you go with a minor bridge deal for most of these guys. Maybe you sign someone like Sillinger to an 8-year contract, but really, we haven't seen the impact from those guys at the NHL level to really say, yeah, they should be signed to contracts like that. But regardless, the Blue Jackets are at a crossroads. I feel like they are. And they're in this rebuild. They're still trying to get better. I think the potential is there, but I haven't seen that potential really excel just yet. But we'll see what next season has to hold, and we'll see what they do in the offseason. But anyways, that's your 2024 review for the Blue Jackets. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe down below. I would greatly appreciate it. We're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers. But regardless, Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.